Land Rover is a British SUV that set the standard for all vehicles in its class. It became a pioneer in the world of versatile civilian off-road vehicles. Originally developed as a temporary means of transport for farms, Land Rover managed to conquer the automotive market and become a true classic. Its wheels have traversed the off-roads of deserts, savannas, steppes, and mountains. Land Rovers were used by farmers, commercial enterprises, travelers, adventurers, and outdoor enthusiasts. As part of various scientific expeditions, the British SUV became a true conqueror of Africa. It is precisely because of the appearance of Land Rovers in many documentary and feature films set against the backdrop of the African savanna that, for most ordinary car enthusiasts around the world, these vehicles are primarily associated with Africa. In addition to civilian life, Land Rovers were actively used in the British Army and in many armies of the Commonwealth countries. How did a simple SUV, originally intended for temporary production, manage to conquer the global automotive market and become a legend? Which car inspired the creators of the Land Rover during its development? And what do airplanes, tractors, and the Land Rover SUV have in common? The answers to these questions are in today's episode. Don't change the channel, it's going to be interesting. And the story of Land Rover begins in 1947, when the British car company Rovers started working on creating a simple, but most importantly, versatile off-road vehicle that was intended for use on small farms. A project like this was a temporary and forced step for a company that, before the war, produced luxury passenger cars. After the end of World War II, Great Britain was in a difficult economic and financial situation. Many industrial facilities had been destroyed or damaged by massive bombings from the German Luftwaffe, and later by V-1 and V-2 cruise and ballistic missiles. After the war ended, the British economy, which had been converted to a wartime footing, faced a shortage of orders as demand for military products, aircraft, ammunition, tanks, and military equipment had dropped significantly. It was necessary to reorient the economy towards civilian needs as quickly as possible. Many British companies that had been engaged in fulfilling Ministry of Defence orders were returning to the production of peacetime goods. Britain, which had significantly increased its debt obligations during the war, needed an export-oriented economy that could ensure a flow of foreign currency. One of the main export products for the country was supposed to be automobiles. It was a good idea, but on the way to making it a reality, most car manufacturers had to overcome significant difficulties related to shortages of raw materials and supplies, especially ordinary steel, for which the British government imposed strict quotas. An alternative to steel, such a crucial material in car manufacturing, was another metal, aluminum, which was stockpiled in large quantities at many aircraft factories. This happened after the demand for new airplanes dropped significantly following the end of World War II. It was aluminum that became the material used by Rover to build their off-road vehicles. The idea for a lightweight, versatile off-roader, which was supposed to resemble the American Jeep Willys, came from brothers Spencer and Maurice Wilks. This vehicle was intended to be a universal means of transport for farms, as reflected in the name Land Rover, which was coined by Rover's chief designer, Maurice Wilks. The original concept of the Land Rover was something between a light truck and a tractor. It was supposed to be something similar to the Unimog, which was being developed in Germany at the same time. That's why the first Land Rover prototypes were equipped with side and rear power takeoff shafts, allowing the off-roader to operate various agricultural implements. The production of such off-road vehicles was seen by the company as a forced and temporary measure until the post-war recovery of the British economy and the renewed demand for expensive passenger cars. The production of Land Rovers was supposed to last for 3 years. During this time, the company planned to accumulate enough funds to rebuild a new plant in Solihull near Birmingham, where Rover had relocated after its main factory in Coventry was bombed by German aircraft. Before becoming the property of Rover, the plant in Solihull belonged to the British government and was used during World War II for building aircraft engines. Along with the production facilities and equipment, Rover also received and used stocks of aluminum, which would later be used to make the first prototypes of off-road vehicles. The first Land Rover prototype was built at the beginning of 1947. Its main design feature was the centrally positioned steering wheel. The off-roader was based on a Jeep chassis and used the engine and gearbox from the Rover P3 sedan. The body was hand-built from an aluminum-magnesium alloy called Birmabrite. In designing the first prototypes, they used not only military surplus aluminum but also paint. That's why the early Land Rovers were painted in various shades of light green. Land Rovers featured a simple design with boxy, straight-edged body lines, which was unusual for that era when sculpted pontoon bodies with lots of exterior trim were becoming fashionable. A distinctive feature of the Land Rover's design was the massive rectangular front fenders, which extended far forward beyond the edge of the radiator grille. The vehicle was built on a simple box-section steel frame, welded together from 4 plates. The car's body was made from aluminum panels, which were resistant to corrosion and helped reduce the vehicle's weight. The first tests of the off-road vehicles confirmed their exceptionally high efficiency and versatility. The power takeoff shafts, which were installed on the side and at the rear of the vehicle and operated via a drive from the engine and gearbox, turned the off-roader into a true tractor capable of powering a variety of agricultural equipment. During testing, the Land Rover was even used for plowing, cultivating, and performing other agricultural tasks. However, at the final stage of pre-production, the agricultural focus for the use of Land Rovers was abandoned. Instead, they enhanced its driving performance. The steering wheel, along with other controls, was moved to the side, just like in regular cars. To reduce costs and speed up production, the body was significantly simplified and a new, more powerful engine was installed along with a specially designed transfer case to replace the Jeep unit. In the end, Rover managed to create an off-road vehicle that didn't use a single Jeep component. In terms of dimensions, the Land Rover was shorter than its American counterpart, but it was significantly wider, heavier, faster, and still retained the power takeoff shafts. The official premiere of the off-road vehicle took place in 1948 at the Amsterdam Motor Show. That same year, the Land Rover went into mass production. The first-generation vehicles were named Series 1. From 1948 to 1951, the off-road vehicle was offered in a single version with a wheelbase of 2 meters and 3 centimeters and a gasoline engine with a displacement of 1.6 liters and a power output of 50 horsepower. The engine was paired with a 4-speed manual transmission from the Rover P3. A 2-speed transfer case was responsible for the 4-wheel drive. The front axle of the off-roader could be engaged and disengaged using a freewheeling hub. A foldable canvas roof was used for protection against bad weather. The vehicle's suspension was dependent, using longitudinal semi-elliptical leaf springs. On Land Rovers produced before 1950, the headlights were hidden behind the radiator grille. After 1950, they became protruding. In 1952 to 53, a more powerful 2-liter gasoline engine was installed in the vehicle. In 1949, for customers with higher comfort demands, Rover released a special modification with a station wagon body manufactured by the Tickford Coach Building Company, which is known for its work with Rolls-Royce and Lagonda. The body had a wooden frame and could accommodate 7 people. Compared to the Spartan conditions of the basic Land Rover models, the Tickford body was well equipped: leather seats, a heater, a solid laminated windshield, a hard spare wheel cover, interior trim, and other minor options. The wooden body structure made the production of this SUV modification very expensive. In addition, in the United Kingdom, the Land Rover Tickford was taxed as a private car, which led to a higher final price for the SUV on the British automotive market. As a result, only 700 Tickfords were sold, and just 50 of them on the British market. As for the basic version of the Land Rover, it was classified as a commercial vehicle, which was exempt from the sales tax. The second version received a new gasoline engine with a displacement of 2.25 liters and a power output of 72 horsepower. The Series 2 station wagon, in addition to the 10-seat version, was also offered with a 12-seat modification as an option. This was done primarily to take advantage of British legislation, which classified vehicles with 12 or more seats as buses. These were exempt from sales tax and special vehicle taxes, making the 12-seat station wagon cheaper than the 10- and 7-seat Land Rovers. Such vehicles were classified as minibuses and could freely use bus lanes. In 1961, an updated Series IIA modification was released, featuring minor cosmetic design changes and a new 2.25-liter diesel engine. And after 1967, long-wheelbase Land Rover variants received a new 2.6-liter inline 6-cylinder engine. Changes also affected the braking system, which was upgraded with a brake booster. Starting from February 1969, for the domestic market, the headlights of all models were moved to the fenders. Later on, the vehicle would receive flatter sills. The profile of the rear wheel arch would also be changed. It is the Land Rover Series IIA models that are considered the most popular in the lineup. Their appearance in the 60s coincided with the growing global popularity of SUV-class vehicles. The design of these off-road vehicles became a true classic for many, after appearing in numerous feature and documentary films set in Africa during the 1960s. The most iconic of them was the 1966 British drama Born Free. In February 1968, just a few months after Rover was incorporated into the Leland Motor Corporation, Land Rover celebrated its 20th anniversary. By that time, about 600,000 off-road vehicles had been produced. 70% of them were exported. Production peaked in the 70s, when the British company was making about 60,000 Land Rovers a year. Thanks to record sales, Land Rover dominated many global markets. In Australia in the 1960s, Land Rover held 90% of the off-road vehicle market. A similar situation was seen in many countries in Africa and the Middle East. Land Rover attracted customers with its durability, simplicity, ease of repair, and memorable original design. Specialized vehicles for forestry work were built based on the Series 2 Land Rovers, equipped with special tractor-sized wheels. There was also the production of specialized Cadburys and all-terrain vehicles, which were equipped with tracks. Many off-road vehicles were supplied to various global organizations, including the UN, where they were used as ambulances. Since 1962, based on the second series Land Rover off-road vehicles, lightweight 1.5-ton trucks called Land Rover 2 AFC forward control were built, featuring a cab-over-engine design. A total of about 2,500 units were produced. Most of them were equipped with a cargo platform. A small number were produced as chassis for fire trucks. In 1971, Rover launched the third generation of the Land Rover off-road vehicle, known as Series 3. These vehicles had the same body and engine options as the previous Series II. In the third series, the traditional metal radiator grille of the Land Rover was replaced with a plastic one. In 1976, during the production of the third series, the 1 millionth Land Rover rolled off the factory assembly line. In the mid-70s, in accordance with new safety requirements, the metal dashboard was replaced with a softer plastic one. While in previous series the dashboard was located in the center, in Series 3 it was shifted toward the driver. From 1979 to 1985, Rover also produced versions of the Land Rover equipped with an 8-cylinder V-shaped gasoline engine with a displacement of 3.5 liters and a power output of 91 horsepower. This modification was named the Land Rover Stage 1 V8, equipped with the engine and transmission from the Range Rover. The SUV was mainly aimed at export and was intended to compete on the global market with the Toyota Land Cruiser and Nissan Patrol, especially in Australia and African countries, where Japanese SUVs equipped with powerful and durable 6-cylinder engines were rapidly pushing Land Rovers, which had weak 4-cylinder engines under the hood, out of the market. Another weak point of the British vehicles was the unreliable 4-wheel drive and the dependent suspension with leaf springs. These very weaknesses were addressed in the new Land Rover Stage 1 variant, which received a more powerful 8-cylinder engine and a permanent 4-wheel drive transmission from the Range Rover. Throughout their entire production run, Land Rover series off-road vehicles were sold not only on the civilian market, but were also sent into service with the armed forces of Great Britain and many other countries around the world, mainly those of the British Commonwealth. In the military, Land Rovers were used to transport personnel, ammunition, and equipment. Based on the chassis of these off-road vehicles, ambulances and communication vehicles were created, and a variety of weapons were mounted, including heavy machine guns and recoilless light cannons. Land Rovers were actively used during the Korean War and the Suez Crisis. Under license, British Land Rover off-road vehicles were built in many countries around the world, in Belgium as the Land Rover Minerva, in Germany as the Tempo, in Spain as Santana Motor, and in Iran as Moritab. Complete knockdown kits were also supplied to the markets of Morocco and Costa Rica. Land Rover series off-road vehicles became the first truly mass-produced civilian cars of this class. In total, during the production period from 1948 to 1985, Rover and many other companies around the world that assembled these off-road vehicles managed to build over 5 million Land Rovers across 3 series. They were exported to more than 50 countries around the world, where they were used by law enforcement agencies, scientific organizations, various services, and the military. They were also sold on the civilian market. The Rover company managed to create a true masterpiece by adapting a rugged, Spartan military off-roader to meet the needs of civilians. Thanks to its widespread presence and participation in the media, Land Rover became a true legend and a classic in the world of off-road vehicles. As of today, about 2/3 of all Land Rover series off-road vehicles ever produced are still running. So it's entirely possible that right now, this living classic of the global automotive industry is driving somewhere near you.